if you have been wondering what comes in one of these Pokémon Eevee Crochet Kits from David and Charles, you're in luck. We're going to be taking a look at one of these kits today. We'll be doing an unboxing, and I'll be showing you the materials that come inside and sharing my opinion on what quality of materials are included, and giving you a quick review of the Eevee Crochet Kit from David and Charles. And before we get started, I want to say thank you to our friends at David and Charles for gifting me this kit in exchange for my honest review. So if you're ready to get started, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to this channel. And let's get started with unboxing our Eevee Crochet Kit. So you can see on the front of the box here, the kit, it says that the kit includes all you need to make Eevee and instructions for 5 other Pokemon. If you take a look at the back of the box, these are all the patterns for the Pokemon that are included. Now, the patterns in this kit were designed by designer Sabrina Summers. And if you haven't seen my review of the book already, she has a book called Pokémon Crochet. So the patterns for the kit are from this book, Pokémon Crochet. So it also says inside you're going to find a 48-page book containing patterns to create Eevee and 5 companions. And if my kids were here, they'd be able to tell us what all of these are, but I can only probably name 3. So also coming in the kit, it says we're going to find a crochet hook, yarns of the correct colors to create our Eevee, stuffing, felt for detailing, glue, a needle, and a brush. So let's open this up and take a look at what we've got. All right, so let's get this box out of the way and we'll take a look at the actual materials. So this is what I would assume is the main color for Eevee, just based on the pictures. Right off the bat, I see that these are hanked up, and so you would need to be able to either wind these up by hand into balls first, or use a yarn winder in order to cake them up before starting. And it looks like inside the yarn here is our crochet hook. And it's at the 2.5 millimeter crochet hook. Now, I'm not a fan of these kind of crochet hooks. I understand that when they make these kits, this is something that they always provide. But this is something that I would use for just general crafting instead of actual crocheting. We've got also, I forgot to mention that these are 2 different yarn weights. This looks like a worsted or even an Aran weight, and this appears to be something more along the lines of a sport or even a fingering weight yarn. We've got a 3rd color here, a dark brown, some black yarn, and this wire brush. I mean, I'm the most excited about this because as an Amigurumi designer, these are always really handy. And we've got a little bag. Let's take a look in here. So we've got 3 different colors of felt, a needle, and a little bottle of glue. Then we've got our stuffing. This always cracks me up. It's in one of those vacuum sealed bags. And I'm going to cut this open in just a second because I want to see what kind of stuffing that they sent. I'm pretty picky about my stuffing. There's the really heavy cottony stuff that doesn't stuff well. And then the lighter stuff tends to stuff a little bit better. And then here is our book. This is Eevee Crochet Kit. And it says that there's beginner projects of Pichu and Wobbuffet. And then the easy projects are Eevee, Pikachu, and Meowth. And the intermediate is Jolteon. But everything that we've got in the kit here is just to make the Eevee toy. So you can see that it even has some stitch tutorials. in here that are very, like, they look to be pretty straightforward. How to sew pieces together, which I know lots of people have questions about often. And then we just jump right into the patterns themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause our video here and I'm going to attempt to make an Eevee, and I'll come back and show you my progress and share my experience using the materials in this kit. The only thing that I won't use that's in the kit is the crochet hook. I will be using my ergonomic crochet hooks just because I need to. So let's pause the video here and I'll be right back. All right, so I'm back and I am finished my Eevee toy using the Eevee Crochet Kit that we started talking about in the beginning of this video. And I wanted to finish sharing my thoughts on the kit, some of the things that were included, that weren't included, that I wish were, as well as just my experience using the materials. And maybe I'm going to share a couple of tips that I have for working on the actual Eevee toy that weren't necessarily included in the pattern. So the materials in the pattern themselves were, I found, were high quality. The only item that I wasn't crazy about specifically was the glue. I didn't find the glue to be really great. If I were to just kind of flick at the eyes here, they might come off. So I'm actually going to use a hot glue gun, or either I have a fabric adhesive upstairs that I might use on these should they fall off. Because I'm going to be giving this to my daughter, I want the eyes to be secure. Other than that, the yarn was great, albeit a little thinner than I'd be wanting to use again in the future. And the crochet hook, again, as I mentioned earlier, I did plan on using one of my ergonomic hooks here from Furls instead of the standard one that came with the kit. Now, the other reason for that was the kit comes with a 2.5 millimeter hook here, as you can see in my hand, and the one, because my tension was loose and I was getting holes in my fabric, I ended up having to go down to a 2 millimeter hook in order for me to get a dense enough fabric to make an amigurumi toy. One of the things I'd mention about the wire brush is when you're using it, just be careful. I did stab my hand with it multiple times while brushing out the collar on Eevee and the tail. So just keep an eye on that and be careful, because it has quite a bit bite there. And the one thing that really surprised me about the kit was the stuffing. The stuffing was really good quality. I've been sent and used other crochet kits before, and honestly, this is the best stuffing I've ever seen in a crochet kit. And heck, if I would use this every day if I knew what exactly this one was. It's great stuffing, so I was really impressed overall by the quality of the kit. The patterns themselves, again, they come from the Pokemon book. I'm not personally a huge fan of the way it's written, and I would not advise that this kit be given to an absolute beginner because the style in which it's written is can be a little confusing, as well as there's not a ton of guidance in terms of like brushing out the fur and how to do that effectively. Now, the toy itself, I'll give you kind of a 360 view here. Here's his little face. Now on the cover image, the yarn that is, or the embroidery thread that is used, is a little thinner than the one that came in the kit. If I hadn't committed to using everything from the kit, then I would have chosen to use a thinner embroidery thread for that. Oh, and before I forget, the kit was missing a couple of things that I would have wanted to have included for it to be, everything you need. Obviously, it doesn't come with scissors. That's not something I would have wanted. But the one thing that I felt was missing that was kind of a compelling thing for me was there's no stitch marker. With amigurumi, you should be using a stitch marker to mark your first stitch. If you don't, it's very easy to lose track of that. And so it wasn't included. So that I felt was a bit of an oversight. Everything else, though, being included was great. So we've got the side view here of our little Eevee. The acrylic yarn doesn't brush up as well in the tail when it's crocheted versus when you're making the collar. So it's not as fluffy. if I were doing it again and not following the instructions as closely as it was, I'd probably attach some more of this yarn to the tail and then brush that out to get, you know, a fluffier tail. And here's the legs. So this took me probably about 22 to 23 hours to complete. It's not going to be an overnight project. It is very time consuming, but you can't argue with the results. It looks very much like an Eevee, and it was a great little project. Now, when you're brushing the collar, you have to have a lot of patience because your brush, again, is small and you have to continue to clean out the bristles. And I deliberately left these fibers in here so you can see, like, you have to clean it out every couple of swipes in order to make sure, continue to brush it. So make sure that when you're doing this, you're in a place where you have a convenient garbage can or a bin or bag of some sort you can store the extra fibers in. And when you're brushing it out, don't try to do it all at once. You want to try and brush a few strands at a time. Now, I took a little video showing how I've brushed it, and I'm going to have have it overlaid here or up in the corner so you can see kind of how I was doing it. I'd take a few strands and start brushing them out until they started to get fluffy, and then I'd add a few more strands and start brushing those to get fluffy. And you have to work all the way around. The other thing I'd suggest is don't just brush in one direction, brush in a bunch of different directions. It'll make it a little quicker and also fluffier. And when you're done, I recommend taking a pair of scissors and trimming around the collar. That's not recommended in the instructions, but it is something that I did. And another thing that I felt could have been added to the instructions, which would have been helpful, was how long to cut the pieces for the collar. I cut mine like 6 to 8 inches, which were way too long. So if I were doing it again, I'd probably cut them to be about 4 inches, maybe even 3.5. So that way there's less to trim, because the shorter they are, the less you have to trim and the less you have to brush. So I ended up cutting around and cutting the yarn before continuing to fluff it up. And after you've got it sufficiently fluffed up and you've done your trimming, then just go around and kind of give it a little bit of styling with the wire brush, and then use your scissors to, again, trim any strays and kind of clean it up a little bit more. All right. And then when you're gluing on your eyes, I recommend holding the eyes and nose piece down and waiting till they're completely dry before you start your embroidery. I thought mine were dry before I started the embroidery, and they weren't. And effectively, my eyes ended up shifting. I don't know if you could see it on the camera. Thankfully, the glue dries clear, because there is a little tiny bit of glue that's visible here from where the eyes had actually shifted over while I was attempting to embroider the eyebrows. And the nose just doesn't want to stay on either. Other than that, it was I was shocked by the quality of the kit. It was really good quality stuff. Again, other than the glue, that was problematic. But you can't argue with this. My daughter is going to lose her mind when she sees this Eevee when she gets home from school today. So that's it for me today. If you have any comments or questions, I'd love to hear from you, and I will offer to help you in any way that I can. And thank you so much to David and Charles Publishing for giving me one of these kits to review. If you enjoy free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com. And if you'd like to check out my full review of the Pokémon Crochet book, that's also available on my blog, theloopylamb.com. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.